Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. The fun with the sprayer might be easing off a bit now. There is a reason. I mean, I've stood on chairs and I've sprayed pots and things like that. And, well, what it comes down to is I've just decided to check over the Masdevallias and Restrepias and the Paphiopedilums and things like that. And the pots were incredibly dry. Now, okay, we've had exceptionally warm weather over quite a long period now, so the temperature in here has averaged 28 to 30 each day, with high humidity, yes, so the plants weren't dehydrated as such, but some of these plants, like the Restrepias, have got very fine hair-like roots. If they stay dry for any length of time, they just die. Same with Masdevallias. If the roots dry out totally and they stay like that for even quite a short time, they can just die. So this business of using the sprayer to water is not on. And the main reason is not the concept of doing it like that. It's the fact that a lot of the pots I can't get at without actually taking them down off their shelves. I mean, I can't get at that lot and water them properly with a sprayer. It just isn't working. But what was good was actually giving the whole plant, you know, a good wash down and, you know, that sort of thing. That worked good. And I mean, I've sprayed all the mounts this morning. It took less than 10 minutes. It normally takes me over an hour to water the mounts. So there is a time saving there, but the downside for me is I'm not hydrating the pots properly. It just isn't working. The good thing is, I suppose, that, you know, by spraying the pots, most of the new roots are in the top of a pot. So as such, those bits were okay. But some of the pots were very dry from like halfway down. So there's not enough water getting in there. And for me, there's no substitute for pouring a lot of water in the top of the pot and watching it run out the bottom, knowing that the whole pot has been properly hydrated. So, you know, wherever the roots are in that pot, they've got some water. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm going around all the pots. Relatively slow process because I haven't picked these plants up for a while. That's another downside. I'm not getting to check over the plants. So there could be buds or spikes lurking that I don't know about. And we'll have some nice surprises. You know, look on the positive side. There could be some surprises. You know, we'll see how we're doing. But hydration wise, I'm just not getting enough water in the pots with the sprayer. And I'm not getting to look over my plants. There could be bugs lurking that I haven't spotted. You know, I could have an outbreak of blinking spider mites up in the back somewhere that I haven't seen because I haven't handled the pots. So that's what I'm up to today. Filming while I'm going round, like I often do, is not that easy because I'm still tethered. And quite honestly, water gets splashed around a lot when I'm watering. I'm not careful with the water because I know that in the area where I water, there's nothing important, you know, to keep dry. There's no electrics or anything to get wet in this area. The electrics are up high, yeah, so I can splash around. But starting with looking for changes and things like that, this little rhodostrictum, which is still in bloom, the other new growth is starting to spike. I thought it would. There was no reason why it shouldn't. If you look at the size of the new growth, it is slightly larger than the previous one. The previous one bloomed, so why shouldn't that one? So anyway, we've got a spike coming on that one. So even though that bloom's been out absolutely ages, it's either going to have a buddy or two, or it will replace that one if that one decides to go over and it finally comes to a close. And obviously, as far as the plant's concerned, I'm looking for another new growth now. And that could be one. Latest growth is now on the right of the shot, yeah, next to the one in bloom. If I follow that one down to the base, slightly to the right of the base, looks like a little shoot to me. There's also a couple of new roots, but yeah, I think there may be a new growth. So progress on this one, looking good. A case in point, having just lifted up the big Shelob Tolkien and Shari Baby, which were here, and also Donald sits here, they're now down on the floor, I come to some smaller plants. Now most of these in this little bit here are dendrobiums that need that higher light, so they're closer to the glass. And one of those is this one, Dendrobium moniliform. Now this is variegata, has the variegations on the leaves. And that one's not only produced a bud, but it's opened it and I didn't even know. Yeah, so these are the sort of things that could be lurking. And I must remember to get a still of this particular one. I've had this plant many years, it's bloomed many times, and every single time I forget to take a photo. It's not the most interesting of dendrobiums by any means. It's one of the earlier ones that I got, you know, and when I first started thinking I could grow dendrobiums, I grabbed everything that was going. And at the time I quite liked the fact that this one had variegated leaves and some dead ones. But yeah, that plant's produced a kiki, and it's also producing another one over here. So chances are with a plant this size, because it's not a huge plant, the kikis will just get poked in the pot when they're big enough. Now this one already is. That one's got a reasonable root system and its leaves are open. I could just literally break that off and poke it in the pot, you know, just find a space for it, and then that starts, you know, makes the plant a bit bushier. I've got another one of these on a mount. This one over here, that's effectively a piece off of that plant. And looking at the strength of the two new growths, I think this one's growing a little bit better. It's difficult to tell. I mean, the canes on this one are larger, but then it's a much older plant. So difficult to say. But you know, I mean, this one's pushed up a couple of new growths this year and produced some nice new roots. So got two of those. I don't remember this one ever blooming, or yet anyway. We shall see. And again, now I've handled the plant and looked at it properly, this kiki that I was on about is in fact two, both of which have got open leaves, and there's actually another one at the base just opening leaves as well. So that's three viable kikis with roots and open leaves. That's a new potful that I didn't know about. Obviously these kikis were there last time I watered it, but that's quite a long time ago when I actually picked the plant up and had a look, and they've grown on a lot since then. So yeah, I think those three kikis with their roots can come off and start a new pot. So I'll have one of these to sell. That'll be quite nice, because I certainly don't need three. I've got a mounted one and a pot. You know, I don't need three, but I can certainly sell one on, you know, especially if it's in bloom at the time. That always sells them well. Now this one is Miltonidium, and God knows what sort of bug that is. Looks like a tiny little spider. Yeah, you can stay. That size you can stay. Anyway, last time we looked at that, it had a new growth coming out of a strange place, because it's nowhere near the latest growth. It's coming out of one of the older growths. Well, that's good. Where they come from, I don't care. Yeah, it is a spider. He's just come round again. But there's another new growth coming out down there with some roots already. And a spike. Yeah, so that's a new growth and a spike since I last looked at that plant. Now, I'm not sure I should let that spike develop, shall I or shan't I? Because this plant didn't have very good roots and it's recovering effectively. Well, it's got new roots under that last growth, and the two new growths, one of them already has its new roots forming, which means that one will as well. I won't be able to see those because that's near the middle of the pot. So I think it's got enough roots to support that spike, so we'll let it run, because I really do like those blooms. Yeah, so now this is turning into a bit of fun, whereas I was worried because I haven't handled my plants, and you know some of the pots are quite dehydrated, you know, they're quite dry down the bottom areas. But now I'm doing it, they're not gone far enough for me to worry about. You know, a little bit of dryness for a day or two won't blinking kill the plants, not with the humidity and the surface of the pots getting sprayed. They'll be fine. But I'm finding things that I didn't know were there. It's like going away for a couple of days and you come back and there's buds and things. So yeah, don't feel so bad about it now. Yeah, so more Melissa, oh God, what is it now? Miltonidium melissabriani, and they are good blooms. I suspect that'll only have a couple of buds on, As the plant's recovering, that won't be a full-size spike, I don't expect. But when you get that on an Oncidium type and it produces a relatively weak spike, under normal circumstances you might not get as many blooms, but the blooms are normally okay. They might be a little bit smaller, but it won't be much. The blooms will be what you're used to. The difference will be you might only get a couple instead of on this one you could expect 7, 8, even 9 blooms on a good spike. And on a poor spike, 2 or 3, which is probably what I'll get, 2 or 3. And then the other 2 new growths, by the time they've plumped up and got to their full size, they should both produce good spikes, and roughly at the same time, because they're at the same stage of development. So something to look forward to, some blooms soon, and 2 nice new growths to push on and produce blooms in the future. We'll have some of that. Well, these are the 2 potfuls of little pieces that we potted up a while ago in a video, Coelogene fimbriata. Now these are autumn bloomers. Which bit of autumn I can't remember, because the show where I saw quite a few of these in bloom I have no record of. So I can't for the life of me remember what time of year it was. But they are forming their buds on the larger new growths. Yeah, in several places there's still new growths pushing on. But even if it's only a couple, it'll be good, because recently potted, there's one there as well, one on that growth. So I will, well, providing nothing goes wrong, of course, have some fimbriata blooms to show later in the year. They are pushing on some nice new growth since they were sort of potted up. I did a bit of an experiment here. One is very shallow rooted and one's deeper rooted. It's not really a viable test as such, because this one didn't have as many pieces in the pot and this one had quite a few more crammed in. So although this one looks like it's growing a lot better, that's not... Oh, I'm getting fogged again, hang on. It's because the fans are off, basically, because I'm watering at the moment and it drifts this way. And yeah, the fans are off because when I'm actually watering it gets on my nerves. It just blows all over me and blows my hair around and stuff. So I turn them off when I'm watering. But yeah, not a valid test as to whether a deep-rooted pot does them better or a shallow-rooted pot, because there's different quantities of the plant in each pot. And as a consequence, even the number of new growths is not really a valid test. But they're both coming on. I mean, the pieces have taken, the new growths are pushing out, and on some of the larger bulbs, they are going to bloom. So yeah, they're coming on. They've taken, having been broken up into little pieces and plonked on the top of a pot and some media sprinkled around the surface, because that's all they got. But they're coming on. Now here's a rare sight in my grow room. Don't think we've ever had this sight before. It's a zygopetalum that's not dead and not dying. It's living and it's growing. Now there's a novelty. Just going on, I mean the new growth here is pushing out nice new roots, getting down in the media, and the other one round the other side is doing the same thing. I mean, that's doing well. And quite honestly, there's another one coming here. Now I don't know whether zygos are capable of spiking twice on the same bulb. I don't think so. And this growth here has already spiked. That was in bloom when I got it, as were some of the others. So that's probably another new growth, which is good. But zygos have a trait that they actually start their spike well before the growth is mature. So in theory, those 2 new growths that are pushing on nicely could spike at any time. I mean, that could even be one starting there, I don't know. But anyway, as I say, a rare sight in here. That's the first one. First one that's growing, not dying, not showing any signs of going wrong, just pushing out new growths and new roots. And yeah. That's good news. Okay, just coming to the end of this one now, finishing my watering for today. And I thought I'd end on the little one, and I did say it had a big brother, and when the bloom opened fully I'd film it. Well, there you go, big brother. That is pretty damn special. I'd forgotten just how good that one was. As I said, a lot of the larger Phalaenopsis were just bought in bloom dirt cheap for a splash of colour last year, and like an idiot I didn't put tags in them to say which one was which. In other words, you know, when it's just a Phalaenopsis hybrid, the only way you can differentiate really is by the bloom. And normally I write a tag with a description of the bloom on. I mean, I've done that for some of the Cattleya hybrids so that I know the difference. But until they bloom, if you haven't done that in the past, you have to wait for them to bloom. I've still got one large Cattleya that hasn't bloomed yet. So process of elimination, I might be able to work out what that one is now, because the two other large ones are open. But that is some bloom. Again, it's got that edging that makes it look like it's backlit, and a reasonable spike for me. We've got 2, 4, probably 5 blooms, but they are a good size, you know, they're nice sized blooms. Not the biggest, not by any means, but lovely splash of colour, lovely depth of colour, lovely spotting on those lower 2 sepals. Yeah, I'll live with that. See you next time. Bye for now.